OG Ever After High fandom like back in the day? What was the drama with Descendants like when Descendants was actually originally released? Well, hi, my name is Ainsley from Fairy Tale Vibes, and I am an OG Ever After High fan. I have been collecting Ever After High dolls since they originally came out in 2013, which, yes, means I have spent over 10 years with Ever After High, so I'm going to tell you the history of the Ever After High fandom and all the tea that has went down from my perspective. I'm going to be covering the rise, the height, and the fall of Ever After High, and also what Ever After High is like now, that it is basically dead in the water, but us as the fans are trying to keep it alive. So first, for a little perspective, I was around 10 or 11 years old when Ever After High first came out, and honestly, my introduction to Ever After High was the books. As a kid, I was obsessed with this book series. These are the Ever After High books by Shannon Hale, and to me, these are some of the best, stories in the Ever After High canon. I love Shannon Hale's writing. I love the way she includes the narrators, and this was my introduction to Ever After High. This is the first Ever After High book that was really widely released, and this is the Storybook of Legends. So in this video, I'm going to be splitting the history of the Ever After High fandom and my perspective on the fandom into 3 eras. The first era is just going to be what was Ever After High originally like when it was released, what was it like when I read this book for the first time, and the second era is going to be what was Ever After High like in its height, and this is also going to involve the drama with Descendants, because Descendants kind of came out when Ever After High was in its height, and then the third era is just going to be what is Ever After High like now? So getting back into the first era of Ever After High, like I said, I was 10 years old when Ever After High first came out, and pretty soon after it came out, I read this book. And an important thing I want to share with you guys, because I am sharing the history of the fandom from my perspective, is I wasn't necessarily in the online fandom from day one, because Ever After High came out when I was in 4th, 5th grade, and I really did not start watching YouTube until I entered middle school in 6th grade. So for my first couple years in the Ever After High fandom, I was really just on my own, but I did read the books. But the important thing I want to mention is I did not really watch the webisodes because I was not on YouTube yet. But some other dolls I got when I was still a kid and actually playing with Ever After High was I got Cerise, I got Cedar, I got Legacy Day Briar, who's currently laying on my shelf back there. And I got a few others. I got I'm getting Ferris Maddie, I got Mirror Beach Ashlyn, I might be missing some, but yeah, those were my original Ever After High dolls. So these dolls I actually played with, but they're still in pretty good condition because I was an older kid, so I wasn't yeeting them across my room. But the other reason I'm making this video is because I know a lot of you guys who follow me, you have been Ever After High fans since day one, but maybe you were 2 years old or 3 years old when Ever After High came out. And yeah, you played with it, but you were also in preschool. So how much do you remember? And maybe you watched the webisodes on your iPad, but could you really digest what was happening? No. But the reason I want to do this video is because since I read the books first, I feel I have a different perspective. And another important thing I want to share is I was an advanced reader. So before I read these books, I had read Harry Potter, I had read The Hobbit. Well, I had read parts of The Hobbit. That's a whole other thing. But this wasn't necessarily a hard read for me or anything. This was definitely an easy read for me. But the reason I read through it and everything, and the reason I still have reread these books to this day, is because even though they're not hard to read or anything, they're interesting. The plot is interesting. The plot is gripping, even though it's a little, below my reading level. Let's get into sharing what the fandom was from my perspective and how we viewed the characters, because I know people have become a lot more sympathetic to Apple, but back then people did not like Apple. Especially, I'll get into it later in the webisodes, she was more annoying, but in the books you could understand her perspective. She was actually scared that she would go poof, that her and her friends would go poof, but she's still a little annoying because she doesn't really give Raven that much of a chance. So back in the day, people didn't really like Apple, including myself. I liked playing with my Apple doll, but I recognized that in the book, she was kind of annoying. Another important thing that I want to mention that people who were not there for the OG fandom, or who were little when the OG fandom was incepted, may not realize is that the small details that we think are small details now were very important parts of the plot. For example, Cerise being half wolf, Ashlyn being in a secret relationship with Hunter. These were very gripping facts for us. It was oh my gosh, will Ashlyn get disowned if she comes out as dating Hunter? What's gonna happen with Cerise? Is everybody gonna find out that Cerise is a wolf? Here's the thing. Those aren't that exciting now, but you just have to imagine, when it was just, this book released in, a few webisodes, and, sure, pretty on in the webisodes, it does get revealed that Cerise is half wolf. It doesn't get revealed that she's a half wolf in this book. They don't even really talk about it till the next book, which is this book. So, like, early on, it was like, is she isn't a wolf? Like, if you got her doll, you would know she was half wolf because she has wolf ears. Well, she just has, like, slightly pointy ears, but she has wolf ears, and, like, it says in her diary. But, like, if you didn't know that, like, it was like, oh my gosh, like, there was just, like, so much intrigue. There was also so much intrigue to, like, whether or not, like, were they gonna go poof? Is Raven in the wrong? Like, now we know Raven was 100% in the right. Like, Headmaster Grimm was definitely making up the thing about the Stray Book of Legends and making up them going poof. But, like, back then we didn't know that, so it was actually gripping. And, yeah, like, another thing that was actually gripping is, like, oh my gosh, will Ashley and Hunter get together or, like, stay together or, like, whatever? Because, like, we don't actually, like, their relationship doesn't actually get revealed to True Heart's Day. Which you may think, oh, True Heart's Day is pretty on in Ever After High. Actually, it's not. Like, True Heart's Day is at the beginning of the spring semester, which means there's a whole semester where they're secretly dating. Like, even in this book, like, their relationship is hinted at, but it's never, like, fully confirmed. Like, Raven's like, oh my gosh, I saw, like, Ashley and Hunter sneaking around, but she doesn't say anything to Apple because she's not going to expose them. But yeah, like, it was just, like those little things that we take for granted were so much more gripping, and it was, like, so much more interesting. And, like, specifically, like, Cerise being half wolf, which was very interesting. And honestly, one of the gripes I have about Ever After High is still to this day, I always wished, like, we got to, like, see the school realize that she was actually half wolf and, like, accept her, and that never happens. And maybe that was always, like, planned, like, she wasn't supposed to reveal it. Maybe that was just, like, one of those secrets that has to keep secret. But I always wish that it got revealed because I just wanted to see everybody's reaction, which maybe is a little mean. But yeah, I think, like, Cerise was honestly one of the most interesting characters at the beginning of Ever After High. And another thing I want to mention on why my perspective of Ever After High is different and why I think Ever After High is, like, so different from Ever After High and Monster High is, like, Ever After High has, like, definitely has a darker and deeper plot than Monster High. And if you just watch the webisodes, you may not realize this, especially if you only just watched, like, the early on webisodes, because I think this book was definitely meant to, like, complement the early webisodes. So they dive a lot deeper into the plot in this book. Is actually pretty dark. Like, the whole thing, you know how, like, Headmaster Grimm, Milton Grimm, is trying to convince Raven to follow her destiny? He literally, like, creates a fake body. I'm not gonna get into it. It's kind of like it's dark. Like, what I'm trying to say is, like, my perspective, because yeah, like, I was an older kid, but, like, I saw, like, Ever After High as this kind of, like, mysterious, like, intriguing thing. I think now we see, like, the oversaturated colors and, like, you know, the song Power Princess Shining Bright, which I do love the song Power Princess Shining Bright, but it's very, like, pop and it's very, like, animated. And I think we see it and we think of Ever After High as this, like, light, fun franchise. But, like, back in the day, and, like, again, maybe this is just my perspective because I was younger, like, it just seemed more, like, dark and mysterious, especially, like, with, like, the whole Cerise being half wolf. I don't know why that, like, that's just dark and mysterious. But that is my, like, summary of, like, the first era of the Ever After High fandom. People were just very gripped by it. You also have to keep in mind that this was, like, a time when, like fairy tale stuff was very popular. Like, this was kind of a fairy tale renaissance era. Like, Once Upon a Time had come out. I actually filmed this video before, and I'm refilming it to make it, like, sound more concise. But one of the things that I liked that I said in the original video, which I kind of just made this up on the fly, is that, you know how, like, Twilight kind of, like, started that era where everybody was, like, into monsters and vampires and everything, and, like, Monster High was kind of born out of that? Like, Once Upon a Time kind of started this era where everybody was, like, into fairy tales and fairy tales were cool again. And I don't even know if Once Upon a Time started or if something else started it, but Once Upon a Time is just, like, the big thing that I'm thinking of that would have started this, like how Twilight started, like, the revival of monsters or whatever. Like, yeah, like, Once Upon a Time is kind of like what Twilight is to Monster High, but to Ever After High. Anyway, so let's move on to the next era, which is, like, the height of Ever After High. So for the next era of Ever After High, I was in middle school. I had already read all 3 of these books, and I was like, oh, I want more. And I tried to watch the webisodes, and like, specifically Apple is just so much more annoying in the webisodes, and I used to honestly think the webisodes were a different canon than the books until I realized they're not a different canon. The reason Apple seems more annoying in the webisodes is just because, like, in the book we see her internal perspective, we see her and Raven's, like, internal dialogue, because this is told from both their perspectives, but in the show we obviously do not see that, so we'll only see, like, surface level Apple, so she just seems more annoying, but really she's the same character. And obviously just because there's different writers, the characterization will differ a bit anyway, but that's the tea. So eventually, when I was in middle school, I did actually get into, like, really watching the webisodes, but that was more, like, when I was, like, 13, 14 years old, so I was, like, older at this point. But the funny part is, when I really got into watching, like, Ever After High and the webisodes, and, like, was more into the online fandom, I was actually not collecting Ever After High that much, because you guys may know this if you've scrolled back on my YouTube channel, but at the time, I was heavy into the American Girl online fandom. I don't even know if you would call the American Girl online fandom a fandom. We called it like AGTube, like American Girl YouTube, but it wasn't necessarily like creating content like, oh, I'm a fan of like Samantha, the American Girl character. Like, if you know what AGTube is, it was like people creating their own storylines for their dolls. So like, I was a very creative person. I was very into AGTube. I wanted to be an AGTuber. I would make AGTube videos on this channel. They never got a lot of views. I like how like I made AGTube videos for all those years, and then the one video that blows up is my Ever After High Swapped at Birth theory, and now I'm just like, should I have just made Ever After High videos from the beginning? I don't know. But I was very into like the AG collecting scene. So I was spending most of my money on collecting American Girl dolls because they're expensive. But like story-wise, I could care less about the American Girl story. I mean, like, when I was, funny enough, when I was actually younger, I did really like the American Girl books, but more when I was, like, a young teen, late tweens, I was actually, you know, like, I mean, I was into other stuff too, but, like, I liked, like, watching the Ever After High webisodes and specials and everything. So I got into that, and I did get into, like, watching Ever After High specials kind of late. And I also wasn't necessarily, like, I would still buy an Ever After High doll if I liked it, but I wasn't super into collecting Ever After High dolls at that point, which I kind of regret that because I didn't know they were going to get canceled. I think if I knew they were going to get canceled, I would have tried to collect more at the time, but I was like, no, I'm going to spend most of my money on American Girl dolls. Whatever. But I was super into the webisodes, and I specifically remember when Dragon Games came out. Like, it was so hype. I remember, like, all the doll tubers were raving about it. They were like, this is, like, not just a kid movie. Like, this movie was good. Like, I remember people specifically saying, like raving about how good Dragon Games is. And sorry, I'm gonna call Dragon Games a movie. I know people call it a special. I know it's categorized as a special, and I know it's split into 4 parts, but in my mind, I just see it as, like, one movie. Like, I'm not gonna pretend that it's not a movie. Like, it's a movie, okay? So, so when Dragon Games came out, like, people were so hyped. And then, like, when the plot twist happened of, like, Apple, or, like, Darling making Apple, everybody was like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? And people were so gripped. People could not wait for the next Ever After High special movie or whatever to come out. And then I just remember when Epic Winter came out, like, how disappointed everybody was. And people were already disappointed because the dolls were declining in quality. Like, honestly, Dragon Games is a really good movie. But despite it being my favorite Ever After High movie, there's a reason I don't have any of the dolls. I have mirror shards, but I don't have any of the other dolls because they're just not as good quality. Like, maybe someday I'll get them, but, like, they're not a priority right now because they're not as good quality. And then, like, the Epic Winter dolls were even worse. Like, I remember people were mad because Apple's doll for Dragon Games, since she came with a dragon, her outfit was cheaper and she had, like, molded on leggings. I remember people were so mad about that. And then I remember the Epic Winter dolls came out and, like, all of them had molded on leggings. Or molded on tights, I don't even know. But people were not happy with the dolls. So it was just kind of a downhill spiral. But now I need to address the elephant in the room, because there's a reason why all of a sudden all the Ever After High dolls started declining in quality. And that is Disney and Descendants. So I just want to share my perspective because I have been there since the inception of Descendants. So let's talk about what it was actually like, because nowadays people throw around things like, oh my gosh, Descendants ruined Ever After High, Descendants killed Ever After High. Which is not, like, entirely untrue, but, like, let's sit down for a second, because when Descendants came out, like, everybody knew it was inspired by Ever After High. It was very obvious because Ever After High had just kind of had this, like, Ever After High was never as successful as Descendants, which part of the reason Descendants is so successful is because it was pushed on Disney Channel and, like, so many more people saw it, right? And, like, Disney is such a big franchise, so it already had the backbone of, like, all the Disney fans. But, like, people, when Descendants, like, doll collectors specifically, when Descendants was being released, because, like, they really pushed Descendants like a doll franchise, which they really didn't do for any of the other Disney movies at the time, like Disney Channel movies. But basically what they did when Descendants was coming out, one of the first things they did in terms of promotion was they were, like, showing off the dolls at Toy Fair, and they were showing them off to doll collectors. So, like, my introduction to Descendants was not even, like, the Descendants, like, trailers itself. It was, like, me watching vlogs of doll tubers going to Toy Fair, and mainly, actually, I was watching them because I wanted to see the new Ever After High dolls, because I was interested, but I was watching the doll tubers go to Toy Fair, and this was maybe around, like, 2015, 2014, because Descendants was released in 2015, so this was, like, early 2015. The doll tubers were going to Toy Fair, and, like, I remember seeing the Descendants dolls, and I just remember thinking, okay, but these are kind of just, like, a ripoff of Ever After High dolls. Like, that was my thought from the beginning of Descendants. So, I know I have said, like, I was a Descendants fan. I was a Descendants fan, but that's what I want to get into, because we all knew Descendants was inspired by Ever After High. Like, that wasn't a secret. Like, like, Disney would try to deny it. They, like, I remember specifically, like, at the first Toy Fair Descendants was at, they literally, you could tell because I watched multiple vlogs, they gave, like, literally gave the people who are running the Descendants booth at Toy Fair a script, like, to say, like, oh no, these are different than Ever After High. Like, they are not based on fairy tale. They're not sons and daughters of fairy tale characters. They're sons and daughters of Disney characters. Like, they specifically had them say that because I think, like, the people who are running the Toy Fair booth knew that people were going to ask, is this a copy of Descendants? Or a copy of Ever After High? Because it kind of is. Anyway. And I will say Descendants has unique things. It's not entirely a copy of Ever After High. I'm just saying, like, it was very clearly inspired by Ever After High. Okay? So that wasn't a secret, but because people liked Ever After High, and because Descendants was still trying to differentiate themselves from Ever After High by saying, like, oh no, and, like, Descendants did have its own style, so, like, it wasn't necessarily copying the style of Ever After High, it was just kind of copying the gimmick, the idea of Ever After High. Like, people collected both Ever After High and Descendants, and that's what I want you guys to understand. Now we act like there's some fandom war, and, like, I honestly don't think there should be a fandom war, but, like, some people do, and, like, what I want to say is, like, from the beginning, people collected both Ever After High and Descendants. People knew that Descendants was a copy of Ever After High, and they didn't care, because they're like, this is just more of dolls I like. Like, they didn't care, and, like, doll lines copy each other all the time, and this isn't anything new. For example, My Scene copied Bratz. Bratzilla's copied Monster High. Like, this is not something new. People, honestly, we're used to this. We don't really care. The problem became when Ever After High got killed off. So people didn't necessarily have a problem with Descendants. Like, they knew Descendants was an Ever After High copy, and it was kind of a little annoying that it got more successful than Ever After High, but, like, it's a Disney franchise. What can you do? It wasn't that we really had a main problem with Descendants till Ever After High got canceled. And especially until Descendants got brought back and Ever After High didn't, which is a whole other thing. We'll get to that in Era 3. We're still in Era 2. But yeah, so what I want you guys to understand about the history of Ever After High and Descendants is, like, it wasn't, like, we knew it was a copy. We knew it was inspired by Ever After High Descendants, but, like, we didn't always hate it. And I don't even know if I, like, hate's a strong word. I don't even know if I hate Descendants now, but, like, people knew, like, what I want to say, people knew from the beginning, and people didn't care. Because they're, like, and, like, a lot of times, people will come up to me on my TikTok. I like how I'm saying come up to me. They'll come into my TikTok section and they'll be like, why can't Descendants and Ever After High both exist? I'm like, that's what I wish. I honestly don't wish for Descendants to die off. I wish for Ever After High and Descendants to coexist. Like, back in the day, when they were coexisting, I was perfectly fine with that. Like, I'm like, yes, coexist, because even though I can't acknowledge that Descendants is probably inspired by Ever After High, they have different styles. They offer something different. They are not entirely the same, just like Bratzilla's is not entirely the same as Monster High, you know? Like, they offer something different. So, like, honestly, I would love for both of them to coexist. The problem is Disney doesn't want that to happen. So actually, the problem is not with Descendants, the problem is with Disney, okay? Well, actually, I should say the other reason this feud with Disney started, because I'm going to acknowledge this in a second, is because Mattel was making the Disney princess dolls for Disney, but they weren't doing, like, a good job, and also they were, like, distracted by Ever After High. So then Disney took away Mattel's Disney princess licensing and gave it to Hasbro, and Hasbro was also making the Descendants dolls. So the real reason, like, Ever After High, Monster High kind of got booted in quality, downgraded in quality, is because now all of a sudden Mattel lost all that money they were making from the Disney Princess franchise. And so I do think Ever After High was partially canceled because Mattel knew that if they wanted to get back the Disney licensing, they would have to kill off Ever After High, since Disney clearly didn't like Ever After High. So they killed off Ever After High to get back in good terms with Disney, but the reason they decreased all the quality because they rebooted Monster High to G2, and G2 was horrible. Also, if you were an American Girl fan, this is when they introduced Be Forever, which Be Forever is just, like, a worse quality version of the historical line. They reduced all these dolls' quality. They stopped doing good Barbie movies around this time because they were losing money and they were desperate to get the Disney Princess licensing back, and that's the realty. And it is wrapped up in Descendants, but it's not as simple as just saying Descendants itself. Like, I will always say, like, yeah, Descendants definitely helped kill off Ever After High, but it's not the only thing. It's this war with the Disney Princess licensing. It's just, like, drama between Mattel and Disney in general, and, like, Disney wanted to get back, or Mattel wanted to get back in Disney's favor. And also Disney just not liking Ever After High. And that's why I don't think anytime soon we'll be getting an Ever After High reboot, because right now, Mattel and Disney are on good terms. Mattel is literally making the Descendants dolls, and, like, we know part of the reason Disney made Descendants is because they were, like, jelly. They were jealous of Ever After High, and they didn't really like Mattel doing Ever After High, which is why they took away Mattel's license to do the Disney Princess dolls, is because Disney did not like them doing Ever After High, because Disney, believe it or not, actually saw the Ever After High as too similar to the Disney Princess line, even though it's not. Anyway, and they got mad about that. So that's why I'm not expecting Ever After High to come back anytime soon. But let us continue on, because then we get the Lost movie. So there was supposed to be a crossover Ever After High Monster High movie called the Lost movie. It was actually originally supposed to be called Fairy Tales, but that got canceled because of everything going downhill, like I just mentioned, Ever After High getting canceled, Monster High getting rebooted, which people were very mad about, which led them to create The Legend of Shadow High, which is, I don't have the book with me, but it's a Shannon Hale book. She actually wrote it with her husband Dean Hale, and it's a crossover between Ever After High and G2 Monster High, and it's good. My main problem with the book is that it's G2 Monster High and not G1 Monster High, and I do like the book, but it is not the same plot that the original crossover movie was going to be, mainly because Mattel made them use G2 Monster High and not G1, so it couldn't be the same plot. And I like the book. The only parts I don't like are the parts where it specifically talks about G2 Monster High, because I'm like, I don't like G2 Monster High. But it's like a good book, so I'd recommend you guys read that. Also, if you care about the Lost movie, they did post the first half of the storyboards for the Lost movie. The only problem is we don't know what would have happened in the second half of the Lost movie, because they never posted the other half of the storyboards, but you can watch the first half. If you guys watch my Ever After High retelling series, my plan in my Ever After High retelling series, because I'm covering Ever After High from start to end, is once I get to the point in the Ever After High timeline where the Lost movie is supposed to happen, / the Legend of Shadow High, I'm just gonna combine the Legend of Shadow High with the plot of the Lost movie, because I always think the crossover was supposed to be the G1 Monster High. They were setting it up to be the G1 Monster High. Like, there are Easter eggs in Boo York. There's Easter eggs in 13 Wishes from Ever After High. Cupid literally goes to Ever After High and Monster High G1. It was always meant to be with Monster High G1. That's what the crossover was meant to be. They were building up to that, and because of Disney, they didn't do it. So when I get to that part in my Ever After High retelling, I'll try to combine the plot of The Legend of Shadow High and the Lost movie for, like, what I think the canon plot of the crossover was supposed to be. But anyway, that ends our Era 2. And another important thing I want to point out is I didn't actually read Legend of Shadow High in Era 2, and that's because it came out at the very end of Era 2, like, when Ever After High was dying. Literally, like, when the Legend of Shadow High was released, they knew Ever After High was going to be killed off. The only reason they released it is because the fans were really mad about the Lost movie being canceled, so Mattel was like, okay, shoot, we'll give you this. They just did it to, like, appease the fans. Like, they definitely already had fulfilled their book deal with Shannon Hale. Like, they already did 3 Ever After High books with her. And it's funny enough, if you look at the timeline, like, all these books came out very early on in, like, Ever After High's life, and then there's a huge time gap, and then it's, like, The Legend of Shadow High. They're definitely like, okay, what can we do to, like, appease the fans? And they definitely just did that really quick, like, The Legend of Shadow High. And that was, like, the very last thing. But I was too sad, because I was already sad about the downfall of Ever After High, and I already had to, like, this is so dumb, but, like, I had to come to terms with the fact that Ever After High was dying and not coming back. And by the time they released Legend of Shadow High, I was like, no, I'm too sad, I can't even read that. But I did eventually read it. So that brings us to Era 3. So the start of Era 3, I don't know if the Ever After High fandom ever truly died and came back, but, like, my reintroduction to Ever After High was in, like, 2021, just seeing, like, Ever After High TikToks on TikTok, like, and this was, like, the height of, like, the Ever After High TikTok editing era. Like, these TikToks were getting, like, millions of views, and I got very much into it, but I wasn't, like, a super big TikToker yet. And so I would just make some videos where I'd, like, show off my dolls. I do fun stuff like that. I do, like, Ever After High inspired outfits, but I wasn't, like, super big. I did not get big till, like, 2022 / the winter of 2021. It was literally, like, right around New Year's Day. I got super big for my Ever After High Swapped at Birth Theory. And the funny thing about that is, before I did the Swapped at Birth Theory TikToks originally, I did not reread the books. I did not rewatch the webisodes. I had rewatched the webisodes, like, that summer, but the theory for the Swapped at Birth Theory comes from this book. It came from a little 10, 11-year-old Ainsley reading this book and thinking, I think Apple and Raven are swapped at birth. And I just remember, ever since I read this book, I was convinced they were swapped at birth. And I didn't say anything about it for years until I just said, you know what, I'm bored, let's make this TikTok. And then that TikTok gets, like, 1 million views. Okay, great! So basically, that's how I got famous. But anyway, I'm not that famous. But anyway, that's how I got big on TikTok. So I started making more Swapped at Birth theories, and then eventually I wanted to do more research. So I ended up rereading all these books, and then I reread The Legend of Shadow High. Or I never had read The Legend of Shadow High before. I read The Legend of Shadow High. I watched, like, the storyboards from the Lost movie, and I did all this research, and I did a bunch of more Ever After High theories. I did theories about how Gigi Grant is originally from Ever After High. I did like a whole video about Cupid. I did the parallels theory, which actually the parallels theory covers a lot of stuff from the Lost movie. I did all this stuff. I actually also did like a new version with more research of the Swift at Birth theory. So I did all this stuff, guys. And also during this time, I got really back into collecting Ever After High. Like during Era 2, the only 2 dolls I really got when Ever After High was actually in its height were like a Darling, just because I really liked Darling's character, and I never had a doll of her before since like they didn't release her doll till later. Then I got like a Mirror Shards doll, just because I thought Mirror Shards looked cool. But then during this era, like I got my Apple and Raven Legacy Day dolls, which are back there. I got like a lot of just first chapter dolls. I got Lizzie, Maddie, Blondie, actually Blondie I think I got from my sister, Cupid, Ashley, and Bright. I got a ton of first chapter dolls to fill out my collection. So yeah, that's kind of what happened during Era 3, and we're still in Era 3. So I don't know exactly where Ever After High is going to go from here. I don't think they're going to reboot anytime soon, but I'm doing my best to keep the Ever After High fandom alive, and I want to continue my Ever After High retelling series. Part of the reason I'm doing my Ever After High retelling series is just because so much of Ever After High's plot is in these books, and I feel like I said before, like, we don't really get a lot of the big Ever After High specials till the second semester. So like True Heart stays at the start of the second semester, like the start of the spring semester in Ever After High. Like then Throne Coming, then Spring and Sprung, then Way to Wonderland, then Dragon Games. Like they're all during the second semester, and then like Epic Winners at the end, like the start of summer break. If you want to know, like, because there's webisodes that happen during the first semester, but the main bulk of the plot that happens during the first semester, these 3 books all take place during the first semester. So like these books are like the specials of the first semester. So like honestly, if you don't read these books, you're missing a lot of the plot. So that's part of the reason I'm doing my Ever After High retelling series. I've actually already covered all 3 of these books. I have actually episodes 0 through 3. Yes, there's a 0 episode because that's like the backstory. Episodes 0 through 3 of my Ever After High retelling series are up. You guys may have already watched them if you haven't checked them out. And then after these, I have to cover some of the Suzanne Selfer books, which I didn't even mention her. I never originally read the Suzanne Selfer books because they came out later in Ever After High's timeline. And for some reason, I always saw the Suzanne Selfer books as like little kiddish books, which yeah, they are like an easy reading level. I'm not going to deny that, but like they actually do have a lot of Ever After High lore in them. So I am reading the Suzanne Selfer books, and I'm going to do more webisodes, or not more webisodes, I'm going to do more episodes of my retelling about the Suzanne Selfer books, and then eventually I'm going to get to doing Ever After High retelling episodes. I'm just following the timeline. After I finish some of the Suzanne Selfer books, then I'll get to doing the specials and everything, because I'm just going in order. And then I'll eventually get to doing like retelling episodes that cover like, oh, what was supposed to happen during the Lost movie, what was supposed to happen, like if Ever After High didn't get canceled, what was the original conclusion. And I'm gonna try to figure out all those things. And actually, even though like we like a lot of you have already seen the specials, I am still very excited to do the retelling episodes that cover the specials, because a lot of things in these books build up to the specials. Like I have watched people online like review Ever After High and they only watch the specials and they don't read the books, and they'll be like, this is a plot hole. Like there was one person I was watching and they said like, oh, like the evil queen breaking out of her mirror in Dragon Games by floating that apple. Like, you know how in Dragon Games the evil queen floats the apple to convince Apple to break her out of the mirror, right? Like, I saw somebody who said, like, oh, that's a plot hole. And I'm like, no, it's actually not a plot hole, because if you've read these books, you know that the evil queen over time was slowly doing things to break out of her mirror prison. And, like, so by the time it got to Dragon Games, her mirror prison was already really weak. So that's the only reason she was able to cast a spell through the mirror. Like, in this book, she would have never, like, this is the first one. She would have never been able to cast a spell. It isn't until there's an incident that happens in this book where, like, her mirror prison gets significantly weakened. And then by the time it's, like, by the time it's Way to Wonderland, it's, like, even more weakened. So we start to see the evil queen manipulating some, like, little stuff. Like, in Way to Wonderland, she knocks a book off the shelf. And then by the time Dragon Games, she can, like, levitate a full apple. But that's only because she's slowly gaining power and breaking out of her mirror prison over time. That's not a plot hole. That is a plot progression. So that's part of the reason I'm doing the retelling series, because people don't know this. So yeah, that kind of brings us to Era 3. Era 3 is just honestly, like, fandom content, people buying dolls off eBay. All the dolls I've gotten in this era are from eBay. This is also, I don't know if, like, the swapped at birth theory, that's my theory. I don't know if that's, like, a significant fandom point. I think it kind of is, because somebody put it on an Ever After High iceberg. So I guess in Era 3, I made a significant contribution to the Ever After High fandom. So, yay. If you don't think so, that's okay. But yeah, that leads us to where we are today. So that is the entire history of the Ever After High fandom from my perspective, and just, like, the Ever After High community in general. I have to go to the dance studio now. But thank you guys for watching this video so much. I will see you in the next video, I guess, which I don't know what it'll be. Oh, also check out my Etsy. I sell doll clothes. Do you want to see something adorable? I just have to say I'm open for custom doll clothing orders. This is a commission I did, and it is a Sabrina Carpenter inspired Rainbow High doll outfit. Cute. It has the little kiss lip. I am in love with it. So if you want to get a custom order of something like that, that's cute. I also really like doing like doll dresses. I'll put up some other pictures of my creations up here. I also have some pre-made clothes available for sale on Etsy. So yeah, check out my shop. Support me. Check out my Instagram, support me. I would say check out my TikTok, but honestly, it's probably getting banned. Hopefully not. But yeah, bye guys. Thank you for watching.